Good evening, Crossan. I just want to start off by saying I hope you're doing well during this quarantine, and I thoroughly miss sitting in your class. It's been so boring. But let's get into the senior presentation. So, the brain and its susceptibility to addiction. My driving question is, why is the brain so susceptible to addiction? The brain and addiction kind of go hand in hand together because the brain is a complicated part of the body. It's composed of a multitude of neurons, and we should all envision the brain and the body as a team because that's what they are. Drugs will alter how the neurons send, receive, and process neurotransmitters, and it'll also it'll alter your mentality and your perceptions of things. Addiction, the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity, and it's everywhere. It can be in your daily life. It could be in so much as how you wake up in the morning and you might do a series of things because you're addicted to that. You might be compulsive about it, like even being OCD, like you might check the doorknob like 3 times, or in my case, I lock my doors and then I open every single one, like just to make sure that they're all locked. It can morph itself into your daily life, and you can also have you can be down on yourself because of the preconceived ideas of it, which we'll get into in a little bit. A statistic is 40 million, or 1 in 7, ages 12 and older, have a substance problem. Spotting the addict. You will definitely notice changes in their behavior, and I'm talking drastic changes, like they will be easily agitated, they will become aggressive, they will lose control, they will just have these outbursts of anger, and it's confusing because it'll be something so small as like a change in how you say things, and then it just sets them off. You also see their physical signs of addiction, which is different for every drug, but the most common physical signs of intense drug use, like the most intense that you can use, will be dark circles under the eyes. Your pupils will be very big or they'll be very small, depending on the drug that you're taking. You'll look sick, your face will start to sink in, your body will look like disproportioned. You'll just totally look unhealthy. And this is a video, just a short snippet that I wanted to include in my presentation. Oh, my bad. Let me go back. So sorry. Okay, well, we'll get back to that. I don't know why it's not letting me play for right now. I apologize for that. Relationships in the attic, they'll become very distant with each other. They'll start to become closed off. It'll be difficult for them to form new relationships because they're scared. It's challenging, and it's like they don't want to put the effort into something that they know can be taken away so easily. Simple tasks become draining, like even getting out of bed in the morning and forcing yourself to eat. That's something that can take a toll on you, especially if you've become so bad off into these drugs that now you're suffering from depression, and that stems from drug use, and then your sadness will stem from not eating, and they all just go hand in hand together. The brain. The brain performs an incredible number of crucial tasks, controlling the body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing. The central nervous system regulates all the conscious and unconscious aspects of one's life. Motor neurons that control muscle contractions have a cell body on one end, a long axon in the middle, and dendrites on the opposing end. Sensory neurons have dendrites on both ends connected by a long axon with a cell body in the middle. The sensory neurons transfer signals from the outer part of the body to the central nervous system, leading into motor neurons. Motor neurons carry signal from your central nervous system to the outer parts of your body. There's that slide. 5% of the global population have used an illicit substance. 240 million people across the globe consume alcohol problematically. 15 million people around the world use injected drugs. Genetic predisposition and addiction. Genetic predisposition to addiction is no myth. Addiction is due 50% to genetic predispositions and 50% due to poor coping skills. And in my research paper, I wrote about these were twins, 61 identical pairs and 650 fraternal twin pairs, and how they had like differing genetic predispositions and things. Fight or flight. Fight or flight is a psychological reaction that occurs in response to a harmful event, attack, or threat to survival. And drug abuse will often be the result of poor coping mechanisms, and I think that's their fight or flight. They use drugs as their fight because they don't want to admit that they have given up the fight for now, and they're using that as an escape, and they want to get away for a second. And it's sad, but at the same time, you can't help them unless that they begin to admit that they have a problem. And I know this is focusing mainly on drugs right now, but I promise I'll get into different types of addiction. But I figure drugs is one of the most harmful ones, definitely, and it's one of the ones that take the biggest toll on your daily life and your family life, and it's one of the more dramatic ones. Substance abuse. Any substance is going to alter your perception of the world, and it's going to alter your reality, and it's going to alter your mentality. That's just how it is. There's no bright side to that. I apologize, I had to take a water break for a second. So let's start off with heroin. Heroin is one of the more very addictive substances that you can use. There have been many celebrity deaths due to it because they try it once and they think that they can do it again, but you're not going to overdose on heroin the first time because your body is going to acclimate itself to that dose. And then when you do it the next time, you're bound to have an OD. And heroin, that's one of the ones that'll cause you to have like a sunken face, a severe loss in appetite, you become really skinny, emotionally you just become angry and sad all the time for no reason. Meth will also cause you to have very noticeable physical features that begin to deteriorate, but it's not as mentally draining as heroin can be. Cocaine is an upper. It's definitely not one of the highs that lasts as long as heroin and meth. That's one of the ones where your pupils will dilate almost as big as they can, or they're small as they can. It just depends. PCP and LSD are psychedelics. They're not as harmful as the previous ones stated, but they can still be, they take a toll on your mental health. It might be all nice whenever you first take them because everything's distorted and you're feeling up and you're feeling relieved about just life in general at the moment, but coming down, it can cause you to have PTSD, it can cause you to have severe anger issues, it can cause you to have anxiety, bipolar, depression. I've heard many stories of people taking acid tabs, PCP, LSD, all of that, DMT, and they're not the same because a lot of them have experienced ego death, which is whenever you feel like a part of yourself has died during the trip and you don't feel like you're going to be the same ever again, and this can cause you to just be put into it can cause you to spiral. This is a video. Well, okay. I don't know why my videos aren't playing at the moment, but this is, I apologize, the lighting in here is poor so you can't really see anything too great. This is a picture I thought would depict addiction very well. How the needle can have control over you even when you don't want it to, even when you're trying to put it off and you don't want it, but it just has a hold on you. Okay, so now we're getting into other types of addiction. So gambling addiction, compulsive gambling is chasing the high of maybe, not even definite, because it's an indefinite thing, maybe getting a lick of money, maybe getting double what you put in. And a lot of times, the high it gets too addictive and you get this adrenaline rush and you get this feeling, you're like, I can't shake it, like I know maybe this one's going to be a winner, and you think that eventually you start to think that all of them could be winners if you just keep putting more money into it, which will cause you to have severe financial crises in your household, and it's not going to be good for you or your family. And here's a picture of the slide. Internet addiction. I think in 2020 it's kind of hard for people not to have an internet addiction as easy as it is to access. But due to the circumstances, there's not much that anyone else can really do. But at the same time, beforehand, there were so many people that would just be closed off because they're scrolling through their social media tabs constantly, or they're worried about who's doing what celebrity's getting into this, and they're not in touch with their outside life like they should be. Food addiction. It could also be to eating disorders as well. It could also be addictive. But food addiction, just compulsive eating, will lead to obesity, which will lead to heart problems, which will lead to ultimately your death. And eating disorders, you get addicted to looking and feeling skinny, and you want to look how other people want you to look and how you think you have to look for other people. So you begin to become addicted to harming your body in ways that's going to cause other health conditions and other health problems that you'll have to get treated. Gaming addiction, I know firsthand, not because of me, because I'm not a gamer, but because of family members who game, that if you're addicted to it, you're going to have a very, very short temper, and it's going to cause anger issues, and some of your personal relationships will suffer from it because you don't want to do work, you don't want to be in touch. Just like internet addiction, you don't want to be in touch with the outside world as much as you want to be in touch with the world of gaming. And shopping addiction, the addiction to spending money, which will have as much of a financial burden on you as any of the other addictions, but it's a little more intense, just like gambling addiction. Like, as far as finances go, gambling and shopping addiction are going to be two of the most intense ones when it comes to your money. Not that they all don't drain you, but those are just two of the bigger ones. And this is an array of photos that I thought depicted addiction and the severity of it very well. I try to choose very dark themes because addiction is dark. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's something that needs to be assessed in a mature manner, but also at the same time with your guard up and with education on it, because something that you have to go in with not only sympathy, but also you have to want other people to want to do better for themselves, and you don't want to enable them. So yeah, it's hard. Okay, addict behavior. They become compulsive liars. They will lie to you about the smallest thing because essentially, I think that they're afraid of what you'll say, because they've become afraid of themselves and they've become afraid of the truth themselves. So they think if they lie to you, then they're going to feel better about themselves as well, and maybe you won't be upset if you're lied to. They will begin to steal anything, whether it's from corporations or family members, just enough to get that high so they can do it again the next day. They have these manipulative attitudes, and they succumb to this say or do anything mindset just to get that high. They begin to have short tempers with you. As I said before, they become very easily agitated. They have these bipolar and depressive episodes, which are they can get very bad. They can get very aggressive very quickly. They can get intense. They can get abusive, and they can get physically abusive as well. Borderline personality disorder. And there's the slide. I try to show you the slides that have more words on it, but I know that I'm going to link this to the email anyway. So, borderline personality disorder is a mental illness characterized by an altered self-image, impulsiveness, extreme emotions, and intense, unstable relationships. Individuals with BPD often suffer from other psychological disorders, such as anxiety and depression. Addiction and BPD feed off of each other. The addictive personality becomes very dangerous and severe to the addicts. With addictive personality comes susceptibility to any muse the addict pleases. Like sympathy of the other addict, and media portrays them negatively and often as a lost cause, which I think is very insensitive towards the addict. Like, there are many, even posts that you see on Facebook where they're just like absolutely degrading the addict, and I'm not saying that the addict is by any means a good person, but in many cases, it's just the fact that they're a tortured soul and they need to be assessed properly. And I've seen many movies portraying addiction, and one of the best ones that I also wrote about in my paper was The Basketball Diaries, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. And the movie started out where he was this boy he was a senior in high school, and he's playing basketball, and he's one of the best in his state, and he's getting all these scholarships because he's so good. But about halfway through the movie, his teammates begin to give him substances, and they're like, this will make you even better on the court, like you'll be faster, you'll want to work harder for it. And he's like, okay, this is fine. And then one thing leads to another, and he likes the feeling that he gets when he does these drugs, and he thinks that, oh, maybe if I feel so good using this, I'll feel even better using these other ones. And he begins to slowly morph itself into an addiction. And eventually there's a scene where he's outside his mom's door, and she's in the apartment. She had locked herself in, so he couldn't get in, and he's like, Mom, please give me some money, like I need it, it'll make me better again, I promise, like I'm not gonna hurt you, and I want to be let in, Mom, if you love me, please let in. And she can't let him, she physically can't let him in, because it hurts so much when you have a family member that is going through addiction, and they need money, but whenever you give them the money, that's enabling them, and you don't want to enable them because you want them to get better. And at the same time, you don't want them to think that you don't love them, because if you say that you don't love them, or if you do these actions that make them think that you don't love them, they're going to give up even more. And they might not realize it themselves at the time that they're giving up, but in that sense, they're going to just lose hope for themselves. And it's like a lose-lose situation when it gets to that point. There are ways out, but at the time it's a sensitive subject to deal with at the time. I apologize. I get to talking so fast and then I just okay. Prejudices include laziness, lack of motivation, and unwillingness to change. This isn't true for all addicts, I will say. Some put on a mask to complete their day-to-day tasks. Like, there are some people who have done drugs for so long, and they've made themselves accustomed to this life that you could not notice, because after a while they're just so used to it, and they're so used to that feeling that they get. Like, it's hard to tell whenever they're high and when they're not. There are even students that turn to drugs, especially college students, whenever they're getting behind or something, they'll oftentimes get unprescribed Adderall just to get through their classes on a day-to-day. Some research: addiction of any form can have specific effects on the wiring of certain neural patterns in the brain. The reward center, pleasure, motivation, impulse control, and decision making. Effects of addiction vary between a disturbed family life, social isolation, financial troubles, and severe health problems. I think one of the most crucial ones is the family life, because if you don't have family at the end of the day, I mean, what do you have? You might have friends, but family is supposed to love you unconditionally, and what do you have if you don't have that? Treating the addict. Therapy is a very good use of treatment, so are rehabilitation centers, but oftentimes the rehabilitation centers only care about prescribing you, and they don't care about assessing your actual problems. Use of medication can help. Their dosage is so low that physically you won't be able to tell that you're on medication, but mentally it'll make you feel better, because their dosage is made for you. Family support, one of the most crucial ones. A clean environment and support groups. Support groups, I've heard, I've read, are very crucial to the overall mental health of the addict, and it can help a lot to be around these people that can sympathize and empathize with you about the situation that you're going through, because there might not be many people that understand you, but these people can understand you, and they can be compassionate towards you with no judgment, because they understand what you're going through. And someone like myself, honestly, I can't come at an addict without just a little bit of judgment, so I feel like support groups are very key and essential for these addicts to go through. They need a space where they don't feel judged by other people. One day at a time, I think, is very important, because with an addict, you can't just constantly press the issue of get help, you need to get help. That's not how it works. And I've known many people, and one in particular, who they were sober for 7+ years, and they had some issues in their marriage, and then they relapsed and they went back to alcoholism. And you can't just be like, I'm so disappointed in you, how could you do that, like, you were clean for so long. No, like they have to take it one day at a time, because you never know what each day is going to hold for them, and you never know how they're going to feel on a day-to-day basis. Okay, I'll just show the videos at the end, and I apologize for that. I know it's not ideal, but for some reason my Google Slides isn't presenting them like I would like them to. Okay, here's this next slide. Addiction is an involuntary process. It is not fair to associate a person's addictive behavior with their moral standards or character, because once they've done that substance and they're high, they're not going to be the person that you once knew. So it's very unfair to be like, it's very unfair to be like, this is so against like what you believe in, blah blah blah. While that very well may be true, they don't realize that at the time. That's whenever somebody is so far into addiction, that's not really the time to tell them. The brain's response to an addict changes in such a way that the addict continues to live with the bad habits and addictions in spite of understanding its dangerous implications. And finally, my conclusion. The brain is susceptible to addiction for a multitude of reasons. There are many that are like kind of intense, but the most intense one is genetic predispositions. That is the most common reason for drug addiction. If a child's parents were addicts, this automatically makes the child susceptible alone. Some children are even born with addictions. So whenever they get older, the addiction becomes astronomically more intense. Another exception to susceptibility is growing up in a household in which the child is surrounded by addicts and addict-like behavior, which is very true, and this will also take a mental toll on the child. This will cause them to have mental illnesses such as anxiety and depression. I know I mentioned that a lot, but it's very true. If you're in a household that's just toxic for you, you're gonna become unstable mentally. It might not always lead you to addiction, but there's gonna be some kind of instability in there. It's not uncommon for the trauma of emotional instability to get the better half of them. For a change to happen, there needs to be a push for more hands-on assessment of addicts. There needs to be a more sympathetic, compassionate way to assess these addicts, because they don't need to be told that they're bad. They need to be told that there is hope for them and there's a way out of this life that can help you evolve as a person. There's often a lack of sympathy that occurs when evaluating an addict. Excuse me. There's a lack of sympathy that occurs when evaluating an addict. People are so quick to just judge them based on the choices that they've made after their addiction. They don't know what they were going through before their addiction spread. To get a better understanding of addiction, there needs to be a very thorough study of many different kinds of addicts. Every kind of addict, which I tried to focus on in my presentation. Okay? And this is my works cited. And then that's my product. My product is, it's like 17 minutes, so I'm not going to show any of that in this as I would have if it was like in the classroom. But let me get the... Oh, okay. I know why it wasn't working on the, I apologize. I know you said you didn't want us to edit the video, so I apologize for that. I had closed my Chromebook before because I was getting my hair up so it wouldn't look so bad. So I apologize. That's why the videos weren't playing, because my Wi-Fi was disconnected, because every time I close the Chromebook, the Wi-Fi disconnects. So, okay. The first video I wanted to show was called The Cost, and it's just a short snippet. Well, there we go. It's just a short snippet of short film. Oh. was the cost. I thought it was very cool to see like another student do something so intense, like as a short film. You know, it takes a lot of education to make something depicted so well for a student, in my opinion. And then another video I wanted to show was this lady in a TED Talk was talking about the extent of like food addiction and how it's so easy to be like, let me eat this and let me eat that, even if you're full.
Is hungry, and particularly if I am starving, my brain gets into a state that I like to call of deprivation. In the state of deprivation, the main priority of my brain is to find the food so I can eat it. Because for most of human evolution, food was scarce and hard to come by. So you want to ensure that you would pay attention so that you would do the behaviors so that you could eat, because otherwise you may not survive. However, in our current environments where food is everywhere, this has become a liability. And in fact, I find myself constantly, actively having to suppress the urge to eat all of this extraordinary looking food that is everywhere. Food stimuli are everywhere.
Okay, I thought she made some very valid points, and I liked her accent a lot too. She's very nice to listen to her TED Talks. And the last video I want to show is of Russell Brand. He's talking about how the fine line between supporting your family member and enabling your family member regarding their addiction.
Do you have a family member that is an alcoholic or an addict and it's causing you a great deal of pain, and you're wondering, how do I support them without enabling them? Here are my suggestions. It is next to impossible to help an addicted person unless they want to be helped. That's a real fact. Another real fact is it's very difficult to help a person when you're very close to them. Say if one of my kids became a drug addict, or one of my immediate family, it would be hard for me to be the primary person helping them. Even in my marriage, like me and my wife aren't the dominant mentor of one another. Sometimes I say to my wife, you've got to talk to someone else about that because I'm biased, I won't give you good advice. Same for me and her, you know, vice versa.
Yeah, I thought what he said is very true. Like, you're going to be biased towards your family whenever it is regarding addiction, and you're going to enable them without realizing it. And I chose that topic because it's something that's very personal to me, and I feel like it's something that many other people should be educated on addiction, because there's more that you pass by in your daily life than you realize, and people may be struggling and you might not even know it. So I feel like it's important to know the physical, emotional, mental aspects of these people who are suffering from addiction. So that brings my presentation to an end, and I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it was thorough and clear, and I apologize for the not having my Wi-Fi connected to my Chromebook at first and the videos being there. So thank you for watching, and hope you're having a great day.